Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for the believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. Join us, and we'll go face to face with what goes bump in the night. Hey there, believers. I got a great episode for you this week. Today, I'm bringing on Jonathon Hansinger. I think I said that last name right. Hansinger. I'm bringing on the author of this book, The Golden Age of Aquarius. It is it's a fictional, but remotely plausible kind of story. It's let me read the description on the back here. It's available on Amazon, by the way. It's the premise of the book says Robert and Steph started the year with 2 daughters and a son on the way until one fateful night. Their children, as well as millions around the globe, mysteriously vanished. As they cope with the loss, they find God and the prophecies in the book of Revelation. Determined to live 7 years until heaven returns to earth, they must survive aliens, numerous world disasters, and extreme persecution. Monsters have been unleashed, and gods now walk the earth. They use strange technology and sorcery to protect the inhabitants of Earth. Meanwhile, the world has aligned itself under one ruler, Cain, who serves only himself and punishes those who oppose him. It's a cool story. It's a cool book. I'm usually a kind of a slow reader. I let it all just sink in and take my time with it, and do it here and there between things. But I caught a little downtime over the weekend last week, and I've had this book for a few weeks, but I didn't have the opportunity to read it. What I did was, I took it to work with me, and on my lunch breaks, I would skim through, 5-10 pages, and only made it about 40 or 50 pages deep until like Friday last week. And I finished this 464 page book in a weekend. It was great. I didn't want to stop reading it. So it's a real page turner. I really enjoyed it. And I want to bring on Jonathon today to talk about the book, what inspired it, and whatever personal experiences that he has to share. And if you have a story that you would like to share, you don't have to be an author. I know this is like weeks in a row now that I've had an author on. But if you have an encounter or a story that you would like to share, holler at me at thebumppodcast@gmail.com or text me on the bump phone at 304-812-0553. If you feel inclined to support the podcast, since I don't do paywalls or anything like that, everything just comes straight to you. You can do that on buymeacoffee.com/thebumppodcast. All right, let's go ahead and bring Jonathon on. All right, did you get the notification?
Yes, sir.
All right, we are recording. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you coming on the show. I thoroughly enjoyed your book. I know we've talked for probably 20 minutes off air, but I want to tell you again on air that I thoroughly enjoyed The Golden Age of Aquarius. I couldn't sit it down. I read it in a weekend for the most part. Like I said, I went through 40 or 50 pages before the weekend, just trying to catch it on my lunch breaks, and I wasn't having that. So I just sat down and I dedicated myself to the book, and I was intrigued, man. It's a page turner. Thoroughly loved it, man. I thank you for it.
Thank you. I appreciate the intro. I appreciate taking the time to read it. It was a roller coaster to ride. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
For everybody, I read the back cover, on the pre-intro here, but if you would like to, John, just tell us a little bit about the book.
The book itself, so it's set in, it's based on biblical ideals. I throw, I the easiest way to think of it is a mishmash of the Bible, Marvel, uh, some aliens. I guess Marvel has aliens and sorcery, and the Watchers. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of all of those set after the rapture, and it just progresses as time changes, as all the scrolls are open, all the seals are broken, and as the world plummets further and further away from God. It's set around a group of Christians that try to survive and deal with the strange occurrences that are happening throughout the world.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and you do a really good take on it too. Like I I'm really into the survival mindset. You know, I'm big into bushcraft and stuff like that, you know, in my free time. And for this to
Oh,
go
me
into
too.
like the lane of a prepper as well, you know
Oh yeah,
how it's Robert and Steph, right? They get together and
yeah.
they have to start really preparing for this, and they find these other people and they pull the sources together, and it's like really communal. I, that just scratched a really big itch that go that goes along with the all the fringe too, man. Like I was impressed, dude.
Yeah.
I love it. You even
Uh,
brought Bigfoot into this picture, you know.
yeah, I like the way it took my own mindset on the prepping side of it because I always like to be prepared. I'm real big into bushcraft too. I've got multiple survival books, and we live out in the sticks, as I've told you earlier. So I'm very well aware of the prepper mindset and live that way. So I
So
try to take my own personal mindset, which is probably less imaginative than creating something. It's easier to use my own thought process.
yeah, I could tell that it was somebody that knew what they were talking about. You know, there's just little details and stuff in there. And I thought, oh, okay, this this guy knows what he's doing. You know, um, it was cool, man. It was cool. So you were saying this all kind of came to you in a unique way.
Oh yeah. So the way that this book came to be, I can really only take credit for writing it. I don't. I believe that the Holy Spirit impressed me to write this. But the way it worked out is one day when my wife was pregnant with our last kid, I woke up at 5 a.m. and the previous day, my daughter had left some little 3x5 note cards next to my bed because she was coloring. And I just had the entire plot line for this book in my head at 5 a.m. and a pen and paper next to me. So I scribbled down the entire plot line when I woke up. And then when my wife got up, I told her that I had this weird idea to write a book. And I read to her everything that I had written down and explained it. And she's like, if that's what you want to do, then go for it. So it just came to be. I mean, it was one of those that, I kind of touched on it when we were talking off air that I, prior to this, most I'd ever written was like 15 pages. I'd never aspired to be a writer, never wanted to write a book. It just, I didn't, I didn't feel like I had much of a choice in writing it. I just had this strange compulsion, and I didn't stop. I worked day and night. I mean, God bless my wife and kids. She took care of them so much while I was writing this.
Yeah, I could tell that this had to be labor intensive, man. There's so much detail, and it's like I don't know. When I was in college, I had to read a book. I say had to because I wasn't a fan of the author. I'll probably get persecuted for saying that. I shouldn't have said that out loud, but it was a Hemingway book, and I was like, okay, I don't know. I'm not into major authors. You know, I'm into books that I like. You know what I mean? And to be assigned a book
Yeah.
was rough. But once I read it, I enjoyed it. You know, but the detail that he put in there, I thought, man, alive, this guy, he leaves no stone unturned. You know, uh, the visual picture in your mind is clear. And I got a lot of that out of this. There's like I could see I could see their house. I could see the church that they go to meet up
Mhm.
with these other people in the community. I could see everything as it happened because you put so much detail in there. It had to be a
Mhm.
labor intensive project, and at
It
four,
was
it's 464 pages, I think, or 460 some pages, and
something like that. Yeah.
but you burn through it. You know what I mean? Because it's like it keeps your attention, it keeps you going. Um,
Yeah.
it
You
doesn't
know,
get
one thing that was, sorry,
no,
continue.
go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that was weird that I actually forgot when I first wrote that. When I wrote the plot line for it, that tuning fork was also part of that. I had no idea because I've heard of things being done with sound prior to that, but the idea of a tuning fork, I was like, this is such a simple idea. I wonder, I guess I'll just roll with it. But it was part of that entire plot line that was already in my head. It was a very strange idea, but I wanted something so simple. It was something so simple that it it's kind of mind boggling. You know what I mean?
Yes, but dude, that it works out perfect. That it hits it.
Yeah.
They have to move objects and stuff, get stuff out of their way throughout the book, and they have these
Mhm.
Watcher Tech tuning forks that explains how the pyramids are built. It's like, come on, man, that was cool. That's good stuff.
Yeah, that was what I wanted, and I was trying to touch on the reason that after I've written it and believe that God kind of gave me the plot to write, started doing more and more research into it, and I started looking up aliens and different cryptids and stuff, and I started coming to the thoughts of. Uh, I mean, for one, I've read Dr. Michael Heiser's stuff, so I think the Divine Council I think hits it on the nose. But there's nothing that says the Divine Council has to be humanoids. So I
Right.
was thinking, as I got finished with it, and as I started doing more and more research and stuff about seraphim and cherubim, I'm probably slaughtering their names because, like, I'm not a linguist. I live in the business world, so it's just my interpretation of reading it, really, and the research that I've done. But all given descriptions of those throughout the Bible, I mean, who's to say that who's to say that we're alone? I mean, I like one of the things that I actually really don't like and do like. I feel like Hollywood kind of has a like a knowledge of things. I mean, have you ever seen the like Thor movies? I tried to play on that idea to some extent, where it's like a different realm. They've got a gatekeeper with a sword that unlocks different realms, and they can just go travel there. And the realm it's always there. It's just not in sight. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's it's a crazy idea, and it just all of it just plays into us. And when you get reading it, the Watchers play a big role in the book. And I just wanted them all to be a little bit of a spoiler, but they're all. I gave them a variety of sizes, but the majority of them are, let's say, 7 to 9 feet tall. And it was just one of those that as I was reading and writing and everything, it just seemed to fit perfect. And then later on, I was reading. Oh, what was it? I wrote down the Bible verse. Oh, it was First Chronicles 21:16 through 18, where I'm going to slaughter this guy's name too. Arana and his sons and David and his men saw the angel destroying Jerusalem, and they said his sword was over the city. But can you imagine an angel the size of an angel whose sword could cover part of a city?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that's terrifying. I mean, that they if you just go into that, you got maybe even some ideas from Genesis 6 where you get giants and stuff. I mean, if you had an angel that big, who's to say? I didn't make them that big, but who's to say the Watchers weren't that big?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it's just I don't know. I don't want to give away too many details because I want people to buy the book and read it. But
Yeah, yeah, I know.
you know what I mean? But it's really
Yeah,
good. It's well worth it, and you can find it on Amazon, right?
yeah, it's on Amazon under the Golden Age of Aquarius.
Now in the
That's
pre-intro, I held it up so people could see it, but it actually has the Aquarius zodiac sign on there in like a gold sandy
Mhm.
glitter effect on the front with the it looks like maybe Orion behind it.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool
I
book
think it's
cover,
just
man.
it's like a starry sky. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's super cool,
yeah. It
man.
was the name of it was part of what I woke up with too, and the name of it, from what I gather, stems from the golden age prior to Noah's time, and we are in the age of Aquarius. Well, I think the age of Aquarius just ended, or it's on the cusp of ending. I found conflicting results in what I was looking up, so I wasn't 100% sure of when or if it has ended. But we're in the age of Aquarius, or the age of Aquarius just ended, and I wanted it to be the golden age, like the time of Noah, where you get Jesus referencing things will be like in the times of Noah.
Perfect. It's a great title and divinely inspired. I guess it would be a great title, right?
Yeah, yeah, I guess it, it's it's weird to just, I don't know. It's weird to be compelled to write something that I didn't really think everything of.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard
You
for me
said
to be.
this is your first
Go
attempt at
ahead.
writing, right? And for it to be,
Yes.
it's I don't know. I feel like I'm
It,
almost bragging too much on it, man. But it's worth it. You know, it's worth reading. It's worth buying it, checking it out. Um, I highly recommend it, dude. I highly recommend it.
I appreciate it. It was fun. So if you read it, I hope you enjoy it too.
Absolutely. Now, I asked you off air, but I didn't ask any details. But if you don't mind, this show is predominantly about um, weird personal experiences.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if you've listened to the show or dug into it at all, but the name it's the Bump Podcast, and Bump is an acronym. Uh, it stands for the Believers of the Unexplained, Monsters, and Paranormal. So it's no wonder I was attracted to this book. But uh,
Yeah, that's very fitting.
do you
Uh,
have
I
any?
have I have paranormal experiences in my own life, just a couple. But going through my family line on my dad's side, my mom's side, I'm not familiar with, and I don't know beyond hers. But on my dad's side, it's they're I mean, I'm going to share a couple of mine, and then I've got several from just my immediate uncles, up to a couple things that I was told about my great grandma, who is no longer with us, and I can't verify hers or my grandfather's because both of them have passed away at this point. But for me, my first one started when I was 16, and to this day, I still cannot explain it. So I woke up at, it was probably 2:30 or 3 in the morning at my parents' house. I was 16. We're in the suburbs in Northern California, and there shouldn't be anything strange going on. And I woke up for some reason at 2:30 or 3, like I woke up terrified.
Hmm.
And I'm 16. I was like, no, I must have had a nightmare or something. I can't be scared of the dark. I don't want to admit, I don't want to admit weakness as a 16-year-old. And so I tried to do like what kids do. I tried to cover myself with a blanket. And I was like, no, I'm just imagining it. The feeling just stayed there. And then finally I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom. So my room opened to a hallway, and to the left of it was a bathroom. And as soon as I opened my door to get out of the bedroom, the first thing I notice is that it's about 10 degrees warmer outside of my bedroom. And
Hmm.
the second thing I notice is that feeling, my goosebumps and chills, all of it completely went away as soon as I stepped out of my bedroom door. And so my first thought to myself is, I'm tripping. What the hell's wrong with me? Sorry, I don't know if I can say that on your thing.
You say whatever you want, man.
But I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? So I used the bathroom and I stopped at the door and then opened it up, went back in, and immediately chills and this fear. And I want to explain something about fear. I briefly touched on it when we were talking. I am a recovering addict of 12 years at this point, and in my addiction, I have known fear. I have had guns pulled, I've had knives pulled, I've seen death. I am no stranger to that lifestyle. And by all means, this fear is something I have never felt in my life. It was like my soul was in danger.
Wow.
And so when I opened the door back up and went back in there, the fear came back, the chills came back. And I stood there. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I ended up sleeping in the hallway on the floor all night. And that was my first experience. There was nothing that I saw. There was nothing strange happening. It was a weird. I've to this day, the fear still. I've never felt anything like that. Freaks me out.
Now, what do you think that was?
Oddly enough, my aunt, who is actually on this side of the country, told me at that time she woke up that night with a very strong desire to pray for me for protection. So I don't know. The fear I felt to me seems sinister. I have no idea. But it's the only time I've ever had that kind of experience. And I mean, a few years ago, I stayed at one of my uncle's houses, and we had like strange ghost experiences, but there was none of that fear involved. I mean, it was one of those where it was just my aunt, uncle, and another aunt, and then my now wife and I at the house. And we were on different wings of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my wife was taking a shower one time, and there's nobody around, and I'm in the room. And she came out of the shower mad at me. She's like, why are you knocking on the door? I was like, what are you talking about? Knocking on a door? I haven't even gotten up. And I know my aunt wasn't there, and my uncle and aunt are on the other side of the house. And when we told him, he's like, oh, yeah, that's normal. It happens every once in a while.
What?
Yeah. He lived there for like, I want to say 5 to 10 years. So he was pretty well used to this. I'm actually going to share some of his stories too there. And a lot of them happened in that house. But then on top of that knocking, when we went to go to bed that night, man, something ran up and down the hallway all night long. Like literally, you hear thudding footsteps in front going back and forth all night. And we were all there for one of my cousin's wedding. And it's like, I know nobody was up all night.
Right.
It was weird. But I didn't have that sinister fear. Like I said, it was a wholly different experience than my experience at 16 years old.
Wow. And to be awake and have that fear, it's kind of like how people wake up from sleep, some sleep paralysis and have that overwhelming fear. Were you stuck in your bed or anything? Like, did you have that kind of?
No, I pulled the cover over my head to try and hide from it, and then I finally got up to go to the bathroom, but the fear was always there. As soon as I entered my bedroom, the fear was there.
That's pretty intense.
And it was very weird. And also keep in mind too that was the start of my addiction, was right around that time. So I don't know if the two go hand in hand or not, but that is from 16 to 22 is when I was making poor choices in life.
Yeah.
And that is, in that house is where my addiction kind of reared its head and began its life.
Now, does that house have a? Now you said your uncle has more experiences, but does that house have like any kind of weird history? Like,
well, that house was on the West Coast. My uncle's house is actually out in Virginia.
Oh wow. Okay.
But that house was in Northern California in like a fairly new suburb. It was very, very weird.
Yes.
We were just renting the house at the time, and I mean it that was roughly 20 years ago, and at that time that suburb was probably 20 years old, if even that.
Man. So there's no way to
Yeah,
know.
it wasn't. No, it was just weird, and it was the only day I ever had it. We lived in that house for like a year, and I never had anything before or after that.
Really?
Yeah, it was just that one night, and then, like I told you, my aunt also said she told me that she had that day that she prayed for protection for me because she woke up in the middle of the night needing to pray for me. She felt
Hmm.
so. I have no idea what it was. It was a weird one.
Yeah, man.
I can only imagine it's something sinister. I personally would relate it to the start of my addiction, although addiction is a choice. It's not something that was forced on me. But I would be of the inclination that it does tie into it to some extent, where maybe I was helped persuaded that way.
Oh yeah, dude. I think, and I live pretty far out there in my in my worldview, but I think anything that's not of the Lord is demonically inspired for the most part. Uh,
Yeah,
so yeah, I could see that. I would definitely relate addiction to demonic influence. Um,
yeah. It I think where it takes you and the survival rate alone, it's like a demon playground.
yeah, man, for sure. I have some close family members that are dealing with that, and just there's well, I live in southern West Virginia. I don't know how well versed you are in our culture here, but the opioid epidemic, they've made movies about this place, for how bad it is with that. But you say you're 12 years clean.
Yes,
Congratulations, dude. That's
thanks.
huge.
It is. Unfortunately, most of the people I once knew are dead.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
That's the sad truth of that lifestyle. I mean, in my first 2 years clean, I think I lost 10 friends.
oh my goodness. I'm sorry, man.
Thanks. As cold as it sounds, it is what it is. I mean,
Right.
if you make a choice to use again after you stop, I think that it's probably like a 90% mortality rate, if I had to guess. If I just had to throw a number at it,
Yeah.
most people don't make it past that.
Well, I don't. If it's too personal, stop me. But I'd like to ask, how did you overcome that?
Honestly, it was. I spent several years incarcerated, and then at the last time, I was looking at 8 years in prison, and my mom came to visit me. And this is actually, I don't mind because it's part of when I share in like NA or AA. This is part of that as well. My mom came to visit me, and she must have just touched the last emotional string I had left. I mean, if you know people running around making choices like that, emotion is a weakness in
Yeah.
that lifestyle. And she came to visiting. She sat across from me, and she just cried and asked me to get help. And I don't. It, I had already told my probation officer to go f herself at that point. So I had to call her back because for some reason, like I said, it just touched the last emotional chord. I had to call my probation officer back and ask her if I could get a rehab, and she made me sit for another 6 months before she got me a rehab.
Wow.
So then I had a 6 month rehab. So it took time and a lot of effort, and it took. I think I just met the right people while I was in rehab because unfortunately a lot of them are not clean today, but they helped guide me while they were. And it was one of those that I received good advice, and I put in the effort to do it because if I don't put in the effort, then it was all for nothing, anyways.
There you go. That's right. Well, that's incredible willpower, man. because
Okay.
I mean, there's no pull like that, and I just want to tell you, I mean, I know we just met over this conversation here, but I'm proud of that. I'm proud of you for doing that, man, because I know a lot of people, like I said, that battle with this, and I watch them. They want it so bad. They want free so bad, but they can't do it. And
Yeah. The only the only way you can get free is if you are willing to change everything. And my closest friends that I had known for even prior to using, who used with me, I had to cut them off and I had to essentially start from fresh. I had to start with no friends, no family, because my family had ostracized me at that point. Uh, and I just had to earn my way back from nothing.
yeah,
I mean, I lived in someone's garage for like 2 years, working part-time jobs for my first 2 years clean, and then I was finally able to rent a room. It just, if you want it, you gotta do it. I mean, it's definitely hard, but it's doable for sure.
yeah,
But that is a lifestyle that is. I mean, I've met all walks of life in almost any type of career who has either used, been sold, or I mean, I've even met guys. I met a guy once when I was in rehab, actually, who I always thought he talked a big game, like was just talking out his butt, so to speak. Uh, but now the things I've learned today have taught me that maybe he wasn't talking out his butt. He was. Oh, he claimed at the time he was like a high level Freemason, and he was part of these certain affiliations. And I never took his word for any of it, because when you're in that lifestyle, a lot of people like to talk a big game.
yeah,
And he backed it up one time, and that was one time he went to a hospital for like a checkup or something for a few of the guys, and he managed to get a tablet, and I watched him hack into the hospital and pull up my medical records from a tablet. And I was like, nope, I'm not even talking to you anymore.
wow,
And back then I just let it go. But all the things I've learned about like different groups that exist today, he actually might not have been talking out his butt.
yeah,
It's it was kind of an eye opener when I started hearing things about some of the things that he talked about that I just didn't believe back then. It's weird.
that is weird, man. And yeah, nobody's nobody's immune from from going down that road, making that mistake. You know, I dealt with alcohol for years. I was in the Air Force, and while I was in, and I'm not trying to blame the military for it, but that's part of a way of life. If you have a bad day, you and your buddies drink about it. If you have a great day, you and your buddies drink about it. If there's a social gathering, you're drinking.
Yeah.
And it's just like it becomes a daily thing until you get out and you come home and you're by yourself and you're still drinking. You know what I mean? And I went years where I didn't go a single day without at least having a little taste. You know what I mean? Without at least drinking.
Yeah.
And it's a hard habit to kick, man.
Oh, I know. That was one that was definitely hard. And then I had to just distance myself. It's hard because it's so. I mean, we're in the U.S. It's probably the most common thing here.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Everywhere you turn is alcohol.
yeah,
If I go to a friend, if I go to my dad's house, he drinks, but he respects that I don't, so he chooses not to. But back then, I would have seen it still.
right.
It's just so commonplace. That's a hard one to beat too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But
But looking at going by this book here, you're obviously a Christian. Um,
yes.
when did you come to Christ?
Well, I was raised in the church. I was actually pretty lucky that I didn't ever embrace some of the street mentalities, because most of the people I know have very satanic tattoos covering them, the majority of them.
Yeah.
But I was always raised in Christ. I knew the church. I used to go on mission trips when I was like in junior high, and then I just kind of fell away when I was exposed to fast money and the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then when I got clean, part of NA is finding a higher power, and for me, it was God. It was just easy to transition back into what I knew, and I embraced God, and I've just been trying to continue to better myself. I mean, really, I feel in the last 3 years, I've probably put far more effort into my faith than prior to that.
Yeah.
Like I've just been coasting along, and then several years ago, I don't know, something changed inside me, and I just wanted to put a little more effort into it.
That's fantastic, man. I'm glad you made it back home to the Lord. And I think over the last few years, a lot of us have felt that pull to come back home, you know. Uh,
Yeah,
I think that's great. And you know, not to throw another book idea at you if you haven't already had it, but I think your testimony here is definitely worth a read. You know what I mean? I think what you've went through and what you've defeated could be an inspiration for a lot of people.
that that's not the first time I've heard it. I just don't know how I would do it. That's all.
Yeah.
I love the idea of helping others. I just don't know. I don't know how to write that. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
one of those. I've actually been told that by probably like 8 or 9 different family members at this point.
There you go.
But yeah, it would be. I think I'm fine with just this one book for now. Wants me to write something else, but it was a it was a hell of a work.
Yeah, man.
Uh, but yeah, I got a few other crazy things that have happened to different family members too. If you want,
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm all
so
about it. Yeah, I want to hear it.
so if you so for my dad, I was probably 1 or 2 at this point. I've heard this from my mom most of my life, and then I reaffirmed it with my dad, and I went and asked his opinion and asked his story for this. So one day, I, he doesn't know the time, but it was dark in their bedroom, so it was at night. He woke up to the outline of a human male at the foot of their bed, a
Hmm.
black outline, and he woke up and started screaming at it. And I've heard it because my mom still laughs about it to this day. That he woke up screaming at something that she couldn't see, and she's a believer too, so she believed what he had to say. But he said it was a black, like transparent human male shape, about 6 foot tall, and he screamed at it. And then my dad's very logical, so he took a stop for a minute, and then went, maybe I'm imagining this. I'm gonna lay back down, laid back down, and then sat back up, and it was gone. And he told me he didn't feel anything sinister with that, and that was his only experience. But for all of my uncles, my dad's got many siblings at this point. I've got another uncle who still to this day sees shadow figures at my grandma's house.
Hmm.
Uh, he said one of them is in like a tank top and jeans, and it just comes through their door. It's freaking. It's very strange. I haven't seen that being there, but thankfully, I
Yeah.
don't I don't really like seeing stuff like that or hearing the things that I've heard. Uh, I've got another one of his brothers where this one actually saved my cousin's life. So at 12:32, my uncle, my baby, my cousin was probably 6 months old at this time, maybe a little younger than that. At 12:32 at night, my uncle woke up to a baby monitor because something on the baby monitor said his full name
What?
in like a whisper. Yeah, that was my response when I was talking to them, because I've heard this story my whole life too, and I never gave much credence to it. And then as I started looking more into our family, my family is full of these weird experiences. So he heard his full name very softly at first. Then it became stern, saying his full name. Like, I'm not going to say his name, but it was saying his name like, hey, you. And then he said a beautiful woman suddenly appeared in the room, flying like she was all white. He said she was the most beautiful woman he's ever seen.
Hmm.
And when he saw her, he just stared dumbstruck for a minute, and then she disappeared and reappeared further down the hallway. And he got up, and then she disappeared and reappeared in my cousin's room and said his name on the baby monitor again. And that's how he knew she was in the bedroom with my cousin. Well, my uncle got up and went in there, and my cousin had a blanket wrapped around his neck and was suffocating.
Oh boy.
So,
Okay.
had that, whatever that was, not woken him up, I would not have one of my cousins today.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
or this, okay. This this woman, this entity that he saw, he's seeing her as a good spirit.
He, this side of my family is heavily Catholic. I believe he views her as like a guardian angel.
Okay. Okay.
And it didn't seem, in his description, she wasn't sinister. She wasn't out to get anything, or so it seemed. It seemed like she was trying to get his attention for that.
Okay. I was reading into that the wrong way then, man, because I was thinking this beautiful woman in white calls him by name, and then he goes in there and finds his baby with a blanket wrapped around his neck, like I could have taken your child. Um,
It could have been.
you know what I
He
mean? And
used it as a guardian angel like it was a good thing,
yeah,
but
and
it's really up to interpretation. We have no way to know the supernatural. All we can do is speculate.
yeah, that's it. That's it. And well, my mindset goes to this because there's a certain entity that comes up a lot, like too much on my
The woman,
show.
in, the woman
Um,
in white, or La Llorona.
well, she's typically referred to as Lilith,
Oh, I've heard of that one as well.
and you know she takes babies. That's the main goal is to rob you of your joy, and it was just that's what was firing off on my head. But hey, let's go with a good lady.
Yeah.
You
I,
know,
I have no idea either way. I just know I've heard the story. My my recollection had been different, but then when I asked him for his whole story, that was the story he gave me.
man. Either
But
way, I'm very
yeah,
thankful that that your cousin was found.
yeah, it's kind of trippy. I mean,
Yeah, man.
it's one of those that just it's fascinating.
Absolutely.
Part of me wishes I could understand. The other part of me does not want to understand because that's a level of knowledge that, for one, I'm not worthy of, and for two, I don't think anything good comes from a human having too much knowledge like that.
Well, you know, good or not, I there's a part of me that I want to know everything. You know, I pray every night for spiritual wisdom and knowledge. Uh, I might want to give it back if it happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
No, it'd be awesome too, but you got to be careful. It's the
yeah,
same idea as Solomon. Solomon got all the wisdom and was given blessings, but then it's like he sought too much wisdom and started gathering too many and started falling away from God.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
that's where I think it's a little scary to have too much.
It could be a slippery slope, I guess, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, then I've got. I'll touch on my great grandma. I don't know. I never really knew her well enough. She passed when I was, I don't know, a couple years old.
Yeah.
But I've been told by my grandmother at this point, and it was her husband, my grandfather's mother. That my grandfather used to refer to her as a Hungarian gypsy.
Interesting.
She always seemed to know things that weren't known, and I wasn't given any examples, but that was what was said. It was just a weird way to word it. And then she did tell me one time that uh, my great grandmother's father would appear to her after he had died in a mining accident, and I'm assuming Hungary.
Hmm.
And that's all I know about her.
Yeah.
But I think I just really feel a lot of these happen over bloodlines. I mean, we kind of touched on that when we were talking to ourselves. I really feel bloodlines play a major role in this, and I would love. I'm going to say this. I'm sure you would love too. If somebody much smarter than I can do research on genetics and see if you can figure out a way to tie human genetics back to Noah's three sons through some kind of, uh, I don't know, three different markers, I guess. It would be awesome to be able to figure out if you have experiences based on those markers.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Yeah,
And
very, very much smarter than myself.
yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start with something like that other than Google.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But here I got a bunch of stories for you though from that uncle in Virginia.
Yeah, man.
So his house, he knows for a fact his house was built next to or on a Native American, uh, former Native American site, whether it be graveyard or not. I don't know if he knows that information. But there was a farm next to his that was like 300 years old. That they still own some of the property, and that property is what they had sold off to build the subdivision this house was built in.
Wow.
So I have one thing that I actually told you. I can send you the picture for this if you want to see it. I briefly mentioned it in an email. Uh, he told me of one thing I had no idea had happened to them. So his house is two-story, and in one of his kids' room, uh, they woke up one morning to a handprint outside of the window.
Hmm.
And two-story, there are, I think there were juniper bushes right below it. So it's not like somebody's crawling up anything. And the hand itself, and this is what I can send you a picture of if you want to see it. The hand itself, he claimed, is about 3 times the size of his hand.
Wow.
And he said the fingers were 8 to 9 inches long. And the picture that he sent me, it almost looks like an orangutan hand. It is friggin' weird looking. And it's outside of the window.
Are we thinking Bigfoot?
Honestly, I think it's something sinister because he told me later on after we were talking more about a lot of his crazy things happening there that in that room in particular, uh, his daughter didn't feel this, but whenever he walked into that room, he said it felt like the joy was being sucked out of him,
Oh, yeah.
and it was hard to breathe. Those were his words. And I never went in that room, so I have no input either way on this. He said his daughter never felt that way, and I'm going to be careful as to what I speculate here because I don't know if any family members listen to this, but I feel that there was perhaps something there, maybe trying to get her attention.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and I'll just leave it at that because, like I said, I don't know if any family members listen to this, and I don't
No.
want to say, I don't want to say my thoughts on that matter.
Virginia and on a Native American land.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking you to give up his address or anything like that, but would you know like the general northern, western, or what?
I can tell you the tribe of Indians. It was the Nanseman tribe of Indians.
The Mansman?
Nansemond.
Mansman.
I'm probably messing up that name, but it sounds phonetically like I'm saying it. I don't know if that, or it looks phonetically like I'm saying it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's how you actually say it. Nan S-E Mond. Nansemond.
Interesting.
Yeah, but this is the uncle. I mean, he had orbs in his house. Well, that was one of the things that he told me he saw. He said there, his bedroom faced the front door, so they would see cars turn around in the cul-de-sac all night.
All right.
And then one day, lights drove by. Well, lights went by, and then they went up his stairs. And he said he turned to look because it was like, what the hell? He saw, what was it? Like I have it written down. It was like I think it was about 12-inch circle, a 12-inch orb just going up his stairs. And then it disappeared.
Wow.
Yeah, he had some crazy stuff happen in this house. Telling you. And then his wife was a labor and delivery nurse. And I think that he said this happened at several houses. So this is actually not tied to that house. When she would go to her car in the morning, there would be baby feet and handprints inside the car on the windows.
No, thank you.
That was my response. He said he never had anybody stay at his house more than once because of all this stuff happening.
Yeah.
Anybody who stayed there experienced some of this.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go with that. Labor and delivery nurse, and then there's baby feet inside your car.
Not just prints, not actual feet though.
Yeah. Not literal feet.
Like feet and hands.
That would be way worse.
That would be worse. Yeah. But yeah, that was, he said that was a common occurrence at multiple houses they've lived in.
Really?
And it's, I don't know, weird to me. I don't know the answer. I don't know what or why. But yeah, he also had that stomping happen multiple times. Uh, sometimes while he was just sitting in the living room watching TV, something would stomp up and down the hall behind him when his kids were gone and no one else is home. He had one time that would have freaked the hell out of me. He told me, so there was a balcony above his living room, and the left side is near a bathroom. So one of his daughters was standing illuminated by the bathroom behind her, probably watching TV with him down below, like from the balcony. You know? And so the light is behind her, and he said he turned around and looked at her, and there was a black silhouette, full-grown man shape behind her, about over 6 foot tall.
My goodness.
And he said it was dark enough that it actually blocked the light like a person, but there was no one else there. And I think at this point he become so numb to this, he just brushed it off. But man, I don't know. I could never have lived in that house long term.
Yeah, that was my next question was how did he react? But I guess, if you've had all this other stuff going on, he just kind of accepted it, right?
Yeah, that was what it became at some point because he used to have like kids that aren't his kids and disappear running through his hallway. They would try to play with his dogs. And he said he woke up one morning to a looked like a 13-year-old girl trying to get his dog's attention. And when he called his daughter's name, the kid looked at him like, "Oh shit, you can see me?" And then she backed up out of the door frame and disappeared.
What?
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is part of why I think it's familial because after all of my uncles and aunts, so his daughter is one of the ones who continued to have experiences, and I think perhaps there may have been new age stuff in there that helped with those experiences.
Yep.
Uh, my other uncle, whose baby had been wrapped around himself, I don't think he has experiences, but his older sister has experiences, and then I have experiences, and not nobody else does. So it's almost like a generational thing is now dying out where I don't know if my kids will have experiences at all, or maybe it'll start back up, but who knows.
Right.
But none of the roughly 20 cousins have experiences
That's so wild, man.
except for us three. Yeah, when every one of their parents has experiences.
So do you think you said familial? Do you think that there is a
Mm-hmm.
you think there are spirits connected to the generations?
Whether they be blessings or curses is what I would venture into. I just don't know what they would qualify as. I mean, really, it, I feel technically that it's not good. I mean, throughout the Old Testament, more specifically, when someone consults someone who can see the dead, it's usually seen as like, I don't know if I'm using it correctly, but sacrilegious. It's not.
Right.
It's taboo. It's not supposed to be done,
Right.
which to me implies that it's more of a curse than a blessing.
Right.
But that is up to interpretation, and I have no way of knowing anything past starting at my great grandmother, but I would speculate that either her or maybe her parents or her grandparents maybe did something or dabbled in something that lasted several generations, and maybe it's at the tail end of it now. That's where I speculate.
Hmm.
I don't know. I have no way to verify that one just because she's passed away. She's long been passed.
Yeah. But yeah, I find it fascinating, man, because you know, again, and I'm not trying to make it about me by any means, but I look at things like I have a hard time at this point. Now, 4 years ago, 5 years ago when I started the show up, I didn't have this mindset. But now, after almost like right at 300 episodes, talking to people about this stuff and trying to dig into the Lord, I don't feel like there's a whole lot of ghosts, but I feel like there's a whole lot of demonic things, you know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think once we pass on, we usually typically pass on and there we can get like deceived very easily
Mm-hmm.
by these negative entities to make us feel like that's a 13-year-old girl calling the dog and not some demon manifesting as a 13-year-old girl calling the dog just to freak you out.
Yeah,
But going back to the great grandma, you
I
said
would. I have a similar mentality.
what's that?
I have a similar mentality on that.
Oh yeah, yeah, good. I'm glad we're saying this, that we're jiving. And going back to the great grandma, was she the Hungarian gypsy or was she from Hungarian gypsies?
My grandfather called her a Hungarian gypsy, so that
Okay,
was his mom.
yeah. Now,
She
um,
spoke Hungarian, and to my knowledge, she was from Hungary. So
yep,
I, like I said, I never, I can't say I ever knew her in any capacity except as a toddler,
yeah.
in which case I wouldn't remember.
The Hungarian blood is very thick in my family too. Um, I have I have ancestry. I did the ancestry DNA. I ain't gonna lie. I did it. I looked at it. I sent off my DNA. But with all of that, I come back about 3/8 because I have some family members that were half Hungarian, half whatever, but I'm like 3/8 Hungarian,
Mm-hmm.
and my great grandfather, or on my mom's side, my grandfather was full blooded Hungarian, and his parents came over in like 1920 from Hungary, through New York, and
Hmm.
there's no records. There's nothing beyond their names, but it's
Yeah.
interesting. There's that Hungarian connection because my family is steeped in this kind of weird too, man. Uh, it
Yeah, it's strange. That's why I want to know if somebody smarter than me can figure out genetics to figure out if there's some tie to it. I mean, technically, wouldn't Hungary have originally been settled by Shem? No, something. I always go back to Noah's time because I feel like it's easier to delineate from three than it is to once you branch off into millions.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, but back time they settled the known world, which they divvied it up into three pretty much.
right, right. Um, I'm actually pulling up my DNA stuff right now. I want to look at this because this is super interesting, man. If I can
Mm-hmm.
find it, yeah, here it is. Trying to figure out the Jewish descent, right? The From Noah. I It says towards the very bottom. It says I'm 1% Ashkenazi Jew. So
Hmm.
if maybe that is what goes, got watered down, but it's from that region. Um, that was tribe of Judah is the Ashkenazi. So if we can go from Judah back to Noah, maybe we could figure that out. I still wouldn't know. I'd have to look through the Bible and dig into genealogy.
Yeah, that's, that's what I would have to do too. Uh,
Really
but
cool.
yeah, it's a fascinating prospect. Once you start thinking about all the different possibilities, and just from them, that was actually one thing. Speaking of them, there was actually one thing that I wanted to touch on that I wrote about in that book was that idea of the Neo-Pangea.
Yes.
I forgot about that one. I wanted to touch on that because so running around, uh, I was no familiar to, I was no stranger rather to like the theologian or a lot of different other thoughts rather than Christianity. And Pangea is one of those that I've always put to the back of my mind just because I never could find a place to fit it, but maybe there's a reason that exists. And I'm only theorizing here because, like I said, I'm not hated in any of this. My lifestyle is business, but if Pangea could have been a real thing, then the devil could have hidden that little bit of tidbit of truth in other theories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where maybe where the floodgates were opened beneath. If you think of it like a submarine opening, when they dump their ballast, they have an empty pocket there, right? And when they
Yeah.
dump their ballast, if you view the Earth like that, when the Earth would dump its ballast, it would separate all the continents. And then you've got those empty pockets. And if you really want to go further than that, you could turn that into like hollow Earth stuff and uh, and go that route. It was just one of those that I thought about more after I wrote the book, and I started kind of reading throughout the Apocrypha and throughout the Bible to see if there was anything I could find to it. I didn't find much, but that idea always struck me as I don't know why I was given that idea in the first place for that book. You know?
I thought that was wonderful. The Neo Pangea, and you do go into Hollow Earth. You got the earthquake, and
Mm-hmm.
I just I loved it, man. Uh, it gets me excited thinking about it again. It was brilliant, because I'd kind of subscribed to the Pangea theory, and
Mm-hmm.
I know at Babylon everybody was given different languages and they were scattered, but who knows? Maybe the Earth separated after that. Maybe that was the scattering. Maybe there was some separation there, to keep everybody separate. And because, if let's just be honest, if you look at the continents, you can almost fit them all together into one big landmass, right?
Yeah,
And
and if you go throughout almost every megalith throughout the world, there's always signs of some apocalyptic or cataclysmic event.
yeah, and that wouldn't that help explain how you have similar structures in Egypt and Peru? Or,
Yeah,
it's like maybe it wasn't that separated after all at some point. And so when you brought them back together again and people are traveling from Alabama to Israel, it's doable.
yeah, you just walk on land.
Yeah,
Well, it'd be new land, but you just walk over.
yeah,
Yeah, it was one of those that I was just thinking of as I was reading my my notes over here.
yeah. I dig it, man. I think it was there's a lot of really cool ideas in that, and with the advanced tech, you got the
Mhm.
insectulins, you got the Nakash. I could tell that you were into prepping. I could tell you were into Heiser. I could tell you were into blurry creatures. They have a little, uh, uh
Yeah, they got a little blurb in there.
yeah, they got a little blurb. That was cool, man. I thought it was very, very thoughtful.
Yeah, it was it was fun. Like I said, but yeah, it was interesting to see how it just came together as I put it together. I mean, like I said, I wrote down the whole plot line, so I had the giant puzzle already. Then you have to fill in the little filler pieces for it. It's fun to do.
Absolutely.
But the real reason that I want that book out there is I want, if anybody ever has some strange experience that they cannot fit, that they don't believe they can fit God in, I want them to read that book, see if you can figure out how you can fit God into your worldview. I mean, I managed to throw. I mean, I couldn't tell you if it's right or not, but I managed to combine sorcery, cryptids, aliens. Am I forgetting anything? Into a Christian worldview in a sense.
Yeah, and it fits. It all fits. And there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't too much of a stretch on any of it to make it make sense there. Um,
Yeah.
man, I want to talk about details, but I'm trying not to really bad.
You can give some away. I don't mind. Like I said, to me, what's more important is like I've learned from NA. As long as it reaches one person and can and touches one person's heart, then by all means, I've done my job. I don't care if we could give away the whole book as long as one person hears this and says, "Oh my God, I can actually fit God in my worldview now." Then technically, it's done its job.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's the goal, to use whatever channel necessary to lead people to Christ. Um, that's the goal. That's
Mm-hmm.
the goal of this show, really. Like I was telling you off air,
Yeah.
you know, it's been a, a very weird way to do it. And thank God now there's several shows that are really overt about their faith that are in this
Mm-hmm.
same vein. But I tried to say in episode 1 that I was a Christian, and though it took me a year or so to get super, super open about it, I just couldn't help talk about it in any other way, because there's a lot of people that listen to shows like about the paranormal, or people that are drawn to this, that are in the occult, or they're into new age, or they fancy themselves an atheist, but they're still fascinated with the unexplained, that they're not going to hear the gospel. They're not going to hear the word unless you can kind of slip it
No,
in on something. You know what I mean?
and even if they do in today's society, uh, unfortunately, it seems well, and I think in more American society, the word is it might shun them depending on what churches they go to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they have to they have to not only hear the word, but then find the right place that has an open mind to receive them.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
And that's part of the difficulties.
if you do missionary work, you go to other countries, they talk openly about um, demonic possession or oppression. They talk about spiritual warfare. They talk about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the the supernatural worldview, right? Is like Heiser's term there. And here
Yeah.
it's so diluted that, I'm from a small area, and I passed 7 or 8 churches to get to my church.
Yeah, there's like a dozen from a stone's throw from here.
Yeah, man. But that's the thing. I want to go where, and I'm not knocking other churches. There's some great pastors, great preachers around here, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to speak freely about the reality of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
That there is a spiritual war, that there is good versus evil, and it's black and white. Um, y-
Jesus says it's black and white. If you're not for me, you're against me.
there you go. And that's as plain as it gets, man. And a third, roughly, I mean, I didn't count it up, but roughly a third of the miracles and the actions that Jesus does is casting out demons. And when you take Heiser's work, where he explains how, and it ties in with the book of Enoch, how demons come to be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from Genesis 6 until today, it's the same bad guys. They, via the flood or Joshua and Caleb and King David, these Nephilim are being wiped out. These abominations are being wiped out. Their disembodied spirits are trapped here on earth as demons. They want to repossess a body, they want to ruin mankind. And Jesus kicks demon butt all through the New Testament. And he gives us the Great Commission. First thing he says in Mark is followers will cast out demons. So it's the same job. And that, if you believe in the spiritual world, that ties that totally confirms the Bible. That confirms the Old Testament and the New Testament and the work of Christ, because there's still something running up and down the hallways of the houses around here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I definitely hold a similar worldview on that one.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Sorry for getting preachy. I love it, dude. I love talking about it. Um,
You're all right. I enjoy it too. Like I said, that was really the reason that I published this book in the first place, is that I could try to reach people who may have been unreachable, or may not, well, maybe not unreachable, but maybe nobody has tried to reach them,
right.
to help them fit God in their worldview. I mean, if you got someone who's abducted, I can only, I've never had that experience, but I can only imagine it would be hard to fit God into that thought.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the beauty of this book. Even if somebody is of a secular mindset or even atheistic mindset, if they want to look at it like they think they're reading a sci-fi book, hey,
Yeah.
if you like to read about aliens, grab it, check it out. If you're into biblical history, grab it and check it out, because this checks all the boxes, man. You did a great job.
Yeah. Sci-fi, fantasy, and biblical.
Yeah,
It's
sword and sorcery.
it's a
You know,
hodgepodge. I think I even put ogres in. No, trolls.
trolls. Yeah, man. There's trolls in here.
Right, I forgot about them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I tried to. I wanted to make sure that there was no stone left unturned. Man, I can't talk.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, it's. I mean, it doesn't matter if you whatever you want to read. I mean, I've had a few family members read it that don't hold a Christian mindset, and when they finished it, they were like, "Man, that made me want to at least read the Book of Revelation." I was like, "Yeah, by all means." if you have questions, let's talk it through a little bit.
Yeah, man. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to cut you off. If you have more family stories to share, by all means, I'm down for it. Um, if if you want to just tell everybody where they can get your book again, and
Yeah, you can find me on Amazon at the Golden Age of Aquarius. I think there's a few of them, so it's the one with the Aquarius symbol in gold and like a starry sky background on it. That's where you can find it.
that's
Yeah,
right.
I don't have any more. I probably could find more family stuff, but that's all I have at this point.
Oh man, that's plenty. It shines a big light on familial and familiar spirits, or the possibility thereof, and opens the door to this bloodline exploration. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And your book, it looks like on Amazon, it's available on Kindle
Oh,
and in
yeah.
paperback, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Good deal. Um, you sent me a physical copy, and that's the only way to fly off for me, man. I like a page turner, and I like to physically turn pages, so I greatly appreciate it. And dude, it's just been so much fun talking to you, man.
Yeah, that's been fun. I appreciate it.
Well, I guess we'll hop off here for the time being. If you have anything come up, man, just holler at me, and I'm definitely going to tickle your ear about a couple things with book development.
Yeah, by all means. If anything you need, I'll do whatever I can to help.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you, John. You have a good night, and God bless, brother.
You have a good night too. God bless you.
Thank you.